why do you ever challenge an Australian to a drinking contest? Hey guys! Whoa!
I made a mistake. Look at how full that is.
Welcome to Alpha Book Club.
Should we
As
do it
always,
in-
every single Wednesday night. Cheers, guys. Cheers. You can cheers it in front of the screen right here. Oh, no, Hector just goddamn drank the whole
Oh
thing.
my God,
didn't he?
Cheers,
is this
mate.
what's happening?
Yes. Ooh,
Yeah.
when was the last time you sculled rosé? Let us know in the chat below. Hi there. So, as every Wednesday, we do this. This is a nice little club that we all come to. Thank you so much for joining us again. I am with my fellow bookworms. We've got the Nerdist editor-in-chief. It's Rachel Hine, everybody.
Hi, I'm working on it.
She's the best.
Looking lovely. Oh, she's
Take
not
your
a
time.
wine sculler. That's a good thing. That means you,
Are you saying wine sculler?
yes,
What is that?
when you scull a drink,
I've
What?
never heard of that.
because you're literally
Chunk?
throwing a drink into,
Into your skull. You
Oh.
kick your skull back.
Skull it.
That's what I thought I heard, and I was like, Australians are the
Oh.
best.
Just sculling drinks is all. But you're a lady just like, I'm trying to get it back to the book here, like Scout. Looking like a lady in a dress there.
Bring us back, Miss
Well
Marty.
Bring us
done,
back.
Maud, for 5 points there. Also joining us, Geek and Sundry's Hector Navarro.
Woo woo!
Hey there, bud.
Hi.
I like your shirt.
Thank you. It's from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
It definitely is like Star Lord.
That was a good San
Yeah.
Star
San
Lord above.
Diego. Should we all do California accents?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah,
Let's
like,
talk
we should
about this
totally
book.
do it. Yeah, right. So, like, what we want to talk about, right, is this book. But before that, we all went to Comic-Con over the weekend. Who else was there? Let us know in the chat. Talk about your favorite thing, your favorite trailer, all the things you watched. One of the big bits of news, though, that dropped was Ready Player One's trailer. Now,
yeah.
this is a book that we've previously covered right here in Book Club. And I want to know, are you like me? Did you watch the trailer and enter the Oasis and think, what is this? This is not like what I pictured. Where is all the color? What are all these references? I'm pretty sure Duke Nukem was never mentioned in the book, even though the shrinking gun in that game, a real well touch on it. So we're actually going to watch a couple of the trailers, especially of the books that we have. Yeah, I'm skipping all this, guys. Especially the ones that we've covered before, including A Wrinkle in Time. And then we're all going to weigh on it, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat.
Ooh.
Big shout out to all the regulars that we see every week. It's so lovely to see you in there.
Hi, guys.
So let's start it out with Ready Player One.
I live here in Columbus, Ohio. In 2045, it's still ranked the fastest growing city on Earth, but it sure doesn't seem like it when you live in the stacks. They called our generation the missing millions. Missing not because we went anywhere. There's nowhere left to go. Nowhere except the Oasis. It's the only place that feels like I mean anything. A world where the limits of reality are your own imagination.
Monday warrior, meet me, try. Today's Tom Sawyer, meet me, cry. Though his fight is not for rent, to any god or government. Always hope for your discontent. Those changes are permanent. Oh, changes.
A lot happening in that one.
Whoa.
Can I do a sneaky plug? We've actually done all the Easter egg breakdowns on geekbomb.net if you want to check that one out. We've got a real geek contributor. I'm sure Nerdist is exactly the same thing.
like
I'm sure
that.
every single site
Yeah.
had the biggest nerdgasm
Yeah.
over that, which is, well, we spent a
Frame
whole...
by frame, they were working. This crew right
Yeah,
here
frame
working
by
on it frame by frame.
Nicely
so.
done. Nicely done. Lady
I mean-
Amphi says, I'm singing Pure Imagination right now. I
Yeah.
know. I was too for like pretty much the whole weekend. Anytime I thought about it, just that epic bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, that was.
Whoa,
That was really good.
I want to get that. I want
That went over my head the first time.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
For sure.
You know I don't listen to the music.
Oh, I'm all about
That
the
well,
music.
the songs in Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka was a big one for me, and so that one I was like,
Willy Wanker.
what? And
Come
it is like a. Yeah, he is a bit of a wanker.
Yeah.
He's a wide wanker.
But Gene Wilder is amazing, and that movie is huge. But I remember watching the trailer. I was in Hall H, and I actually got to see the panel, and it was Steven Spielberg coming out. And to me, he is my hero. He's one of my heroes. So
Do you
to see
think
him
he's
come out,
in the top 5 best filmmakers of all time?
without question.
Do you think
Without
he's
question.
the top?
I don't know. I think it's really subjective, but I think that just his talent and his proficiency, like just the amount of work that he has, and how he's changed movies,
Yeah.
you know, for better or worse, like just across the board. Because I
And
remember
inspired so many. I mean, look
So
at
many.
from classic inspirations all the way to now with Stranger Things.
Yes.
You look at the sort of
Yeah.
It's all
Amblin
Spielberg.
style,
Yeah.
everything.
And one of the things I noticed that when Warner Brothers did their panel, they had those extra screens in Hall H, this huge, massive presentation.
Okay.
And I mean, they showed the trailer and they had other stuff happening on the side, but before they had the panel, like after the trailer, but before they had the panel, and they had all of these nostalgic images that were thrown up from video games like Space Invaders and Joust and all these different things, kind of being sucked into an arcade machine.
Did you see the
for-
ostrich as well from Joust?
I did see the
Yeah,
ostrich, but
flying
in
past,
that, but
yeah.
in those collection of images, I saw Pinky and the Brain getting sucked in there, and I went,
Again.
"That's '90s, and that's a Steven Spielberg produced thing."
Zoink.
So it's like all these different things are. If you grew up in the '80s, you'll love Ready Player One for those references. I grew up in the '90s.
Duke Nukem's
so
90s.
I still
More.
Duke Nukem's '90s, and he's in there.
a little bit more.
So
of
it
that.
was a really, really special, like, cool thing for me to see Steven Spielberg and somebody. And I think Chris Hardwick mentioned the Iron Giant, and he was like, the Iron Giant plays a pivotal role in this movie, and that's my favorite film of all time. So to see him walking in that sort of.
Is
you
that,
know,
that going to be instead of the mega mech?
maybe.
Maybe that's the
Maybe.
mech that he chooses.
Yeah.
I think
Possibly.
that's interesting too because there's such a tenderness to the Iron Giant that I
Yes.
think would be a fun, especially when we talked about the book. We were talking about how Wade is kind of you know,
A doucher?
Yeah, douche. And
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I was like, what word do I want to use? Yeah, douche. So I think that bringing Spielberg and the sweetness of Spielberg will help kind of turn that into less of a sort of entitled
that
pop
when you get
culture
Vin Diesel?
nerd.
I don't
I-
know. Maybe. Oh, wouldn't that be amazing?
What's he doing?
Sorry, Rach, you're out.
No. Okay,
Sorry.
you do not need that much sunshine.
Sorry. No?
No,
You
I
want
don't
some more?
think so.
No, I'm fine.
We're about to talk about To Kill a Mockingbird in a second.
What I do want to mention though, we spent an
Ooh.
entire month talking about how this was just nostalgia porn and that it kind of
Yes.
lacked in real story.
Substance.
Yeah, how it was just
So
a little
I-
bit of a nerd wank.
Yes.
But now that we've seen the trailer, we all watched that trailer more than once. We all wanted to pinpoint all the nostalgia. So
Sure.
everything this book kind of stood for, we are still eating it up, even though we spent a month kind of slamming it.
Yes, but the difference for me is, and I've been talking about this all weekend, and me and my buddy Keller Knobloch, my roommate Keller Knobloch, he also
To the knob of
to
all
the
blocks.
to Knobloch.
block of
He
all knobs.
just
Oh my
like
God, what if his knob is a block? This whole, shut up, Maud.
I'll ask him. I wish I could say I've seen it. I wish we were that close, but it hasn't happened yet. But I'll ask him.
I'd rather it stay a mystery forever.
You know what? I would rather you ask him the first time you ever meet him. I would rather that's what you do. Is your knob a block?
I love that they've just cut back to the
Yeah,
trailer.
they're like, okay,
Like,
enough
stop
of
it,
this.
guys.
Dick block talk.
Enough of these wine wankas. They're saying, let's just cut to the trailer. But like the thing I've been talking about this whole weekend is I think we all agreed about the issues that we took with the book. My buddy Keller also really disliked the book, but he said to me, as soon as Steven Spielberg was announced, he went, if there's anybody who could potentially fix that stuff,
Yeah.
it might be Steven Spielberg,
Right.
potentially.
Yeah.
When we look at this trailer, obviously the wonderment that Spielberg's going to bring to this, the Amblin-style wonderment, it's there. Check
Yeah,
mark.
yeah.
The crazy camera movement where we're getting this awesome action sequence, that reminded me of Tintin, which Steven Spielberg directed. And Tintin,
Got
it
it.
being a CG motion capture thing, Spielberg uses a camera in that unnaturally. And he was so excited to do that because it was a digital environment that he could move a camera in ways you cannot move a camera in real life. So like him using some of that Tintin knowledge, like watch Tintin again, and those action sequences are incredibly dynamic,
But at
and
the
they're
same
almost
time,
too dynamic.
My problem has always been, and Spielberg actually helped support my argument with this, when you are overly using CGI and heavily reliant on it,
Yeah.
it takes away from the character, it takes away from the heart, which is why I love Jurassic Park so much.
Yeah,
So
miniatures,
yeah,
yeah.
he gets those little wins with that.
Sure.
But this is so heavily dependent on CGI.
It's true.
And again, the color palette, which is something that we
Yeah.
both have a problem with.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
pictured it being rainbows, man, crystal clear. The world is bleak. This is the escape.
Yes.
This is where it's supposed to be enriching. It's supposed to be like fresh air, you know. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's just Blade Runner 2.3.0
Yes,
now.
I think I like the look of it for the stacks. For even when the Rush song is playing and they're getting ready to fight,
Sixers, yeah.
the Sixers are getting ready to fight. I think that all works in that sort of like gray, modern Blade Runner-y type thing. But yes, I thought the Oasis was going to be neon. It was going to be 80s. It was going to be pastels. And this thing that if you were living in the stacks, or you were living in a world where there's worse than now, there's so much pollution, there's so much poverty, and the world is literally falling apart. The world he lives in literally falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you want this to be brighter. But I will say,
clean.
yeah, and clean and crisp and so I think also the main issue I had when I first read the book, the adventure carried me. It was the pop culture references, but also the adventure. I find
Yeah, the mystery,
actual
yeah.
that is interesting. It's really weighed for me in sort of his entitlement and lack of awareness
And that weird
really
romance
did
and
it.
all that stuff,
Yeah,
yeah.
and all that. So I think if we can have some awareness, or if I
Agreed.
feel like if anyone's going to do it, Spielberg will be like, hey,
here's the thing.
let's bring in that wonderment. Let's make these other characters
know.
more characters. We don't have to.
Say it in a sentence or
We
less.
don't have to.
I was gonna say, here's the thing. Ernest Cline, who wrote the book, is also co-writing. He co-wrote the script with Zach Penn, another screenwriter who does not inspire a whole ton of confidence
Yes.
for that stuff that you just said, Rachel.
Penned
In
the
me,
script.
yes, Zach penned the script.
Yeah.
So this first trailer was just like a taste. It was just like tone and taste.
Yep.
I'm hoping that further trailers or whatever else we see from it is like, oh, here's how they're handling the story. Oh, here are the other actors and what characters are playing. Okay, here's T.J.
Here's
Miller's
some
character.
female characters who
Yes.
have a little bit more weight and agency to them besides
Here's hoping.
being
You know what though? I know
Narrative device.
Ernest Cline's touch on this one. If you want nerd fat fodder, he actually owns a DeLorean in real life. So the fact that that is so heavily featured, that's all Ernie. All right, we've had a look at Ready Player One. Let's take a look at A Wrinkle in Time.
Yes, yes,
Get
yes.
your wrinkle on!
Get your wrinkle on!
What if we are here for a reason? What if we are a part of something truly divine? Imagine 91 billion light years traveled like that.
Sweet dreams are made of this.
Your father has accomplished something extraordinary, also dangerous.
Everybody's looking for something.
He's trapped by a darkness that's actively spreading throughout the universe. And the only one who can stop it is you. Be a warrior.
I'll try.
You're going to be tested every step of the way. Trust nothing.
Darling, time for dinner. Are you lost?
The only thing faster than light is the darkness.
So
Oh,
what I
you
love
guys.
about this is a modernized
Yes.
take on
Yeah.
a classic tale, and I really do think it needed that modernized touch with diversity, with the key messaging here. I think Ava DuVernay is one of my favorite filmmakers, like obviously of the last decade, because she is just, if you follow her on Twitter, I can't recommend it
Yeah.
enough. She is just aggressively, well, assertively, because
Yeah.
people don't listen to aggressive people. She's assertively addressing these issues.
Yeah.
And she makes the best points every time. And I think she's using this movie to do
big
what
time.
Harper Lee is trying to do
Yes.
with
Yes.
The Mockingbird.
I
And
agree.
what I love about Ava too is that she not only is carving out a space for herself and taking the story that's about, much like you see with like X-Men, that looks at the other, that looks at being different,
Yeah.
and modernizing it to this family that and the relationship between the father and the daughter, which is so strong in the books, and you can feel it immediately in this, but using a modern story to tell about feeling different, to feel like you can be unique, to celebrate your uniqueness. And she not only does that, but she amplifies other voices really well on Twitter. She always tries to like kind of raise awareness to other people out there, with
think-
Queen Sugar,
Yeah,
all female
yes.
directors, and I just
And
feel like she
doesn't
nailed
direct
this.
because she's like, if I were to direct an episode, that means another female director couldn't get a job
Yep.
for Queen Sugar. So like, yeah, and I think we talked about this before, but somebody, had an epiphany and they're like, oh my gosh, Meg Turney.
Meg Turney is a YouTuber.
That's right, that's Meg Turney.
Meg.
I've had a lot of that one.
Yeah, I saw
Meg,
it.
the character of Meg.
O'Keefe.
Meg,
No, that's Calvin O'Keefe.
Calvin
Forget
O'Keefe.
her last
Meg
name.
In the book?
in the book, yeah.
That'll tell us.
The chat will tell us.
Just wait
Chat.
2 minutes
But
and it'll catch up.
Meg being a mixed race, somebody was like, "Wait, are you doing something with that to take this character from the '50s book, who was an outcast young person, and now putting this over the sort of like the veil, I guess, of being of mixed heritage?" And Ava was like, "Now you see why I decided to do this movie as opposed to other movies."
Can we
So
also-
I know, I'm so excited.
Meg Murray. I also want to
McMurray.
talk about the fact that when you say like she's
I'm just gonna
really
keep
kind
drinking.
of zoning in on what it's like to be different, and In To Kill a Mockingbird is a racial difference, and they're doing the same thing in this one. But what Ava has definitely understood, and why this theme remains relevant decade after decade, is that there's so many ways to be different. There's so many different types of different.
We're all different.
I felt like I was an outsider because of the things that I liked in high
Yeah.
school.
Aw.
But like everyone has, there is no normal. There is only different.
I agree.
And there's this perception that everything is a certain way, and a lot of that comes from the media. That that women need to be a certain way. I mean, it starts really, really young. From
Agreed.
you can't be aggressive or confident if you
Totally.
grow up as a woman versus being vulnerable and sensitive as a man. There's all different things, and so that's really, I think, the power in something like this that's made by Disney, that's going to be seen by not just people who loved the book, but people who love Disney. It's seen by this huge, huge audience, and you get to see yourself represented, you get to see other types of people represented, you get to see difference celebrated instead of something to feel shame about or to want to fit in. And I just think all of the design, just on a basic design level, all of the like natural elements and what she took from the book of this fantastical world and making it still fantastical, but it feels like they're in these places that feel like the real world, so that you have this connection from the reality to fantasy.
Not about religion.
No.
It's about prevalent.
Yeah. Well, I memean, religion as a moral compass, which got very heavy in the book.
Yeah.
You can take that sort of kernel. Yeah. We had and we all were like, no, not for us. But
Yeah.
that kernel of goodness.
Yeah.
And taking that to this modern story, and Ava also said that they updated the quotes that
Yeah,
the
great.
sisters use. So there are Jay-Z lyrics that they're using.
What?
Yeah.
Identify with.
Oh, so
I know,
excited.
I'm so
Are you
excited
lost?
for this.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I love that I have friends who have never read the book, but they saw the trailer and they were like, ooh, that's creepy.
Yep.
When they get to that neighborhood and everybody is synchronized,
Yep.
that came across in that moment. Michael Pena, like, I'm going to love
Man.
rooting against him. He's the best. And then Zach Galifianakis, when I saw that shot, I remember pitching to you guys, like, Zach Galifianakis playing Mrs. whatever the characters were,
Yes.
like the
And that's the happy medium.
Fortune to the happy medium. That's right. Just like, why don't you just sit down and
Yeah.
just have a nice little.
I'm pretty sure
and
that's because it's
what's gonna
cut.
happen?
It's cut together with the lantern world where the happy medium is. So
Yeah.
I think you were right.
I can't wait.
I think you're right.
I cannot wait.
Well, this is the last week or show that we're going to be doing To Kill a Mockingbird. So obviously we need another book, which means a poll is happening. That one is live right now. If you're not following Alpha, which is at Join Team Alpha. You should be doing that right now
Yeah.
because that's what the poll is. And if you're cheeky like me, then I've already retweeted it telling you who to vote for.
Me too. I am cheeky.
Good.
I am
Oh,
cheeky
it's
like
on.
you.
It's on. Okay, so
I actually don't care what wins because I'm
Yeah.
so excited that we're doing fantasy.
yes, it is Canada.
I think I voted for Rachel's pick. Mom, what was your pick? What
Well,
was
let's
your
get
pick,
to it
Rachel?
right
Okay.
now. So there are 3 books. Raise your hand when I read your nominated book out.
Okay.
We have Conan the Cimmerian.
Me.
We have The Wizard of Earthsea.
I voted for Rachel's.
Is that by Ursula?
Yeah, Ursula Le Guin.
That's been on my list for a hot minute now.
Me too.
And
Hot
The
minute.
Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. So that is
Ooh.
what 2 out of 3 are female
Yep.
authors, which is kind of cool.
Okay,
All of them.
fair enough.
Are,
All right, that's
Hey,
fair.
We all did a fantasy, but we could have all. No, I'm just kidding.
These are all classic fantasy novels. All of them are in the top 10 lists of every must-read fantasy. So this is a win no matter what.
Yeah.
Jump on the tweet, make your vote count, retweet it out there. So even if people don't watch the show, they can cast their vote in as well. Because hey, we want to spread the love of reading books.
Agreed. Maj, you're
Now-
such a good host. God damn.
know.
You know
She's
what it
so
is?
good.
Do you know what happened?
What
I
happened?
sculled a fuck ton of wine.
Really?
Yeah.
You get better as you get drunker? I get
yes.
worse.
It's like my
I get
battery.
worse.
Boom, boom, boom.
I don't know if I get better or worse, but I definitely get more comfortable.
I'm better on 2 drinks and definitely not on 3. But anyway, let's get the discussion back to Kill a Mockingbird. What happened last week? Oh, actually, it
Okay.
wasn't even last week. It was the week before. Let's have a refresher because we did have a little bit of time
Sure.
off right there. Hector, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, it's a super fucking sad book. It reads
You-
like molasses.
you
It's
did
in the
this.
South. Everybody's sweating all the time. Atticus Finch is played by Gregory Peck, and he's amazing in the role. And there's a courtroom drama because a black guy was accused of raping a white woman. Guess what? He didn't do it. Big surprise. And Tom Robinson is the guy that I'm talking about. And he is up for trial. And it's also about Gregory Peck's daughter, Scout, and his son, Jim, or Jeremy, but he goes by Jim for some
Jim.
reason.
Jem.
And Jem and
Do you
Scout
ever
just
think
like
of that when you're reading it?
what?
Every
Jem?
time I read
Jem
it,
and the
I go,
holograms?
Jem.
I don't, but now
Every
I will. And the press says it gets closer to the heart than any recent movie. One of the year's 10 best.
Be in the voice, damn it!
Sure to win honors as the greatest picture of the year. Harrison Carroll, the LA Herald exclaimer. Heartwarming and poignantly real. Has the power of holding viewers spellbound from beginning to end. Hollywood Citizen News.
Thank you so much, Hector
very
Barrow
welcome.
from 1952.
You're welcome. One of the year's best pictures. A movie not to be missed. Take your children. Good
Isn't that
Housekeeping
funny?
magazine.
Because some of the biggest themes in the book is do not take your children to the court. These are themes
I
that
know.
children cannot handle.
I
Oh,
know.
but definitely take your children to the movie.
But there is, I mean, did you guys get a chance to see the film before tonight?
I've
now
seen
on
it
the
before.
board.
I've seen it before. I didn't
Guys,
rewatch it.
I-
I'm sorry. We
That's
were
okay.
at
We
Comic-Con.
were
Sorry.
at Comic-Con. We were at Comic-Con. I'm sorry.
I have
we were at
I've been
Comic-Con.
working
on
for
YouTube.
a long
I
time.
agree. Do you guys still have
straight.
plans to watch it? To
Yes, I
revisit
do.
it? To watch it for the first time?
I feel like I missed the boat on that one.
That's okay. I mean, even now, after I would highly recommend it.
But we still keep
Because-
talking about adaptations as they come up, so we
That's
could
true.
talk about
Yeah.
the movie
And
at
this
a later
is,
date.
I have to say, one of the greatest adaptations of a book, I think, in like Hollywood history.
Yes.
I think that this could be up there with The Princess Bride.
Hold on, adaptation?
Yeah, adaptation of a book to
Oh.
a film. I'm talking about the movie.
Yeah. That
I think that this could be mentioned in the same breath as The Princess Bride as like, oh, I think that the movie is better than the book. The book is one of the greatest books of all time, one of the greatest books ever written, but I think that the movie is essentially that on screen.
Yeah.
Plus human emotion and human acting. And that's the kind of stuff that always draws me in and gets me in. I watched the film for the first time a few months ago, and I'm really glad I did before reading the book. Otherwise, it may have been even harder for me to get into the book. So I'm glad I did.
It boggles my mind that you had just seen it as
Yeah.
as a film.
Yeah.
As a
Absolutely.
film
for
buff.
fun.
But
one of those
that you
great
hadn't seen it
chains.
before because it's one of those classic ones. But I think too that I'm hesitant to agree with you just on the human emotion thing because I think in a really powerful book you can get that from the writing. But I will say that like The Princess Bride, you get rid of the fat
Agreed.
of a book that
whole book
that
is
it's
on-
just a
is in the
different
movie.
style,
The
right?
entire
And
book,
so
yeah.
you don't necessarily have to include every single thing in there to get your point across.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the elements of this book where you're like, that are important to developing the message, which is a message of this book.
Yeah.
You can get through when you have Gregory Peck.
Agreed.
You know.
And he's so good.
He's
Fuck,
so
I
good.
missed out, huh?
Gregory Peck, it's worth it for.
You can
I mean,
still see it.
yeah.
jealous of you, Ma, that you get to see the film for the
It
first
is.
time.
It's really
Second
great.
time.
Mockingbird.
Definitely watched it when I was 17
did? Okay,
or
great.
16 or 15.
Ooh,
When
it'll
did
be
I do the book?
It'll be
Last
very
year?
different now. Yeah, just a
Yeah,
few years
oh,
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a year
so
ago.
it's fresh. Okay, great. A couple of years ago.
Boring.
All right, clinky. Okay.
me.
What else happened? I don't know, Bob. No, now we're
into.
current. Okay.
So we were in the
Take
middle
it
of
away.
the trial.
Yeah, we did have half the testimony where basically we see just what a brilliant man Atticus is. He is a lawyer, and we also get, and she does a really good job of this. He's quite fair, and there's no BS in his courtroom at all. And then you can also see like small mannerisms that Atticus does, where you see he's a little bit stressed, or you're not wondering where this point is coming from until boom, he hits you, and you're like, oh my gosh, he's actually just given circumstantial evidence, or made particular evidence circumstantial and provided a complete contradictory thing. Hence, Tom Robinson's right arm being his only good arm, where Mayella was beaten up clearly with someone who had a stronger left arm. That, in regular, normal terms in court, would dismiss a case.
Yeah.
That would be, what is it? With indisputable,
Yeah.
unreasonable doubt.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that provides definite reasonable doubt.
Sustained.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I object.
No, sustained. Overruled.
Overruled. Oh my God, I should know this. I've watched
If it
so much
pleases the
Law and
court.
Order.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna burst out into like a liar.
I'm kicking my ass. Do you mind?
The claw. Yeah, someone in the chat said, "Is it okay that I just watched the film and didn't read the book?" Yeah, there
Yeah.
are no
Yes.
rules. You can come hang out with us, do whatever you want. If you've
There
read
are
it
no
before.
rules to Alpha Book Club.
If you-
don't even have to read the book,
No,
apparently.
if
You
you've,
can come and hang
if
out.
you've read it before,
Yes.
or you're watching the movie, or you're thinking about reading it, you could come and.
I
hang
will
out with
never
us.
shut down a shortcut in life. If you're going to take a shortcut and provides the same results, do it.
Yep.
And I would say, too, that if you have seen the film and then you're coming and joining us and you really were moved by the movie at any level, I
out
would
the book.
recommend reading the book.
Yeah.
Check out the book. It's a book that I'll never read again, and it's a film I'll probably never see again. But
But get
I'm
it
glad that I saw and read each. You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad that they're a part of me now and that we can have this fabulous discussion.
Yeah.
So what's next? What are we discussing next?
So we were in the middle of the trial, and one of the things that Java Book Geek Girl pointed out in the chat is that these are some of the best courtroom scenes written, and I think that
Agreed.
that's absolutely true. Where there is this, there can be. Courtrooms can be very boring. As someone who spent a lot of time,
Yeah.
my dad's a lawyer. I spent a lot of time
I'm
looking
sorry.
at transcripts. I used to like.
Really? Why? Really?
Because I was a weird. I mean, I don't know.
You were like,
Imagine
Dad,
me
can
as
I
a
see what you
kid
do
and
for a
then-
living? And he would give you
He'd
transcripts?
have all these papers everywhere, and I would try. Mostly, I would try to distract him by reading funny voices in
That's
the
really,
transcripts.
you're
to be
the sweetest. That's
You
really
are
nice.
literally Scout.
yeah, a little bit.
Wowee.
And but they're
But, like,
boring. I mean, they're
yes,
so boring.
The real world always has the most boring. It's never Law and Order. It's never like Daredevil comics, which is what I
Yeah.
read and had a lot of courtroom drama, and it was like fascinating. It's never that.
No,
Yeah.
no.
It's always boring. It's very
It's money
procedural.
laundering. Money laundering is a good day, actually.
Yeah.
So I studied law. Well, it's like at the preliminary
You
law.
studied law?
In my school.
Are you a lawyer?
There was in high school there was a law studies.
Okay.
Which would like kind of you could either be a doctor or a lawyer in my high school.
Wow.
In my
Really?
private old girls.
My
school,
high school
100%.
had PE and go fuck yourself. American school systems.
Did you have to do that in public or private?
Yeah, a little of both.
Yep, no, you kind of couldn't even shut a door while you were fucking yourself. Hey, but what I did learn about it in 1 year, I learned about negligence and duty of care. And my God, I actually dropped it the year later. I was like, I'm not gonna be a lawyer, bugger this off. But when I learned about those two things, I was just like, I believe there's negligence at play here. And I was just like all about it. When I realized
Wow.
you had to quote on previous, like on the case of Judy
Yes.
versus Smith, like I was just like, man, I'm out. I don't need like evidence on this crap. And I realized evidence makes up a huge part of law. So I was just like, cool, I'll just keep watching it. But that was my experience with it.
Yeah, but the problem that we see in this book is that we have the law. The law is
I was being negligent.
sort of
That was my duty of care.
immovable. I mean, but then you have people using it to make an argument, and then if you are not doing an arbitration, if you're doing a trial by a jury, then you have people, you have human error, you have human bias.
Yeah.
And so generally today you try to find a jury where there is no bias, and they go through and they try to pick
Yeah.
who, and they ask you all these questions to try to make sure that if this is a case about someone who hates cats, like, I'm not going to be on that jury because I'm like, they're guilty. I love cats. You know, so I'm trying to think of a like very unstressful.
Yeah, that was a great example.
But
That
you
was
need
a
a
good
voice of
example.
all of the people.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
one particular person.
Yes, and
Yeah,
you
and
want
in
you
this case,
want
it's
to
one
be
particular
fair,
person.
and
Yep.
so in this world, and in many cases where people who are very obviously guilty or innocent of things, and the verdict goes the other way, that is often the case of a very biased jury, and that's something that you need to avoid, and it does not happen in this book, and it's heartbreaking, and it's heartbreaking when it happens today. It happens way more than it should today, and it's a tragic thing, and to be a kid who's sitting and watching and then pulled out of it and doesn't know what's going on, and there's this sort of vibe in the book of uneasiness that starts at the section we started, and through the trial and at the aftermath of the trial, there is
Yeah.
this cloud
That's the thing.
over everything that comes to a head in the end, but it's this
It doesn't
unease
stop
of
when the
everything
case is over.
No.
And I think that's really fascinating because I was doing the same thing. Why didn't Atticus go through the jury and dismiss a bunch? Why didn't he choose a better jury? And the way that he described that was
There's
it's such a
nobody
small
else
town.
to
There's
choose.
nobody else.
That's what
and
they
no
had.
one wants dirt on their hands.
Yeah.
No one wants to be a part of a jury where it affects another person's life and then that then affects their business. And I think that's a really interesting thing where the only people that are on this panel have nothing better to do. And the kind of people that have nothing better to do, unemployed, can't get employed, are picking up their welfare checks. And what kind of person are they? And this is what Harper does an amazing job at. It really does define the hierarchy and the different class system and the differences between people. And I've got notes. One part that I particularly loved was the whole folks are folks discussion that Jem and Scout have.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously like throughout the whole book, Jem is getting older. He's showing off his new pubic hair. You know, like pubic hair, chest
I
hair,
think it was chest hair, Mom.
Yep.
pubescent hair.
You know
There you
what?
go.
For your fan fiction,
Check
we'll
it
just go ahead and
out.
say-
La, 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 la.
He just
It's
showed
bigger.
he just showed his fupa to Scout and was
Hey,
like,
hey,
check out this pubic
Not
hair.
everyone's got fupas at that
Everybody's
age.
got fupas all the time.
You don't
Wow,
even
let's
have the
take a-
part of the fupa.
This took a
Woo.
turn.
I do. I
Glad
have
he's
the.
got water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the whole
Sorry.
thing, which is like everyone, folks are folks, and to children who haven't been affected by the real world, folks are folks. And until you start getting older and experience day-to-day life and understand what this class system is, then folks aren't always folks, and there's a difference between the folks.
It was really interesting and sad to see these kids essentially like come to grips with racism, to understand racism, to have Jem be like, this doesn't make any sense, and then to have the world beat him down and be like, well, that's the way it is. It was
I
really
feel
sad and
like-
That's the way
interesting.
it is the biggest damn cop-out in the
Yeah,
world.
it is.
Yeah, and I think that
That's
this
who
is
she
from a
No,
different
she's a bitch. Like,
and this is a different time, and I think that that's something that I still feel very naive about, that I struggle with, where I'm like, but is it?
Yeah.
But is it? No. And what I do like is that by the end, we do have a sort of yin to the yang of there is good and there is an inherent goodness in people, just like some people make evil choices. It is a choice. It is constantly like, there's this talk of baby steps too, of making incremental changes that feel very small, but when you look at it as a whole, I think it's helpful to, I don't know. We'd looked at this in A Wrinkle in Time too, with a kid who's confident and then the world tells them they shouldn't be that way. And they are no longer silly and they are no longer weird and all of those things.
The section where I think
Yeah.
it was really expertly broken down, and that Harper Lee showed America its contradictory nature. It's what's the word I'm thinking of?
Hypocrisy?
Hypocrisy
yeah.
is where Scout and Jem experience school, and then like the teacher telling them about Adolf Hitler.
Yes.
And then Scout goes back home and she's like, well, wait, if my teacher was so against what this guy named Hitler, what he's doing right now in 1935, why can she talk about black people the way she talks about black people, but still be so opposed to this guy named old Adolf Hitler? And I think that Harper Lee, after the case and after Tom Robinson lost his life, I think that she leaned into that as another great way to show the hypocrisy. And for me, I think that this book is absolutely vital in the year that it was published. But when it was all said and done, I was so frustrated as an individual personally reading this book that I can never look back on this book as any sort of a guide map for where we're going. Because I was like, we need to move forward. And I was so frustrated with the idea of the baby steps. The speech where a character says, do you think it was happenstance that Atticus Finch was chosen to defend this man, Tom Robinson? That in itself is a victory. And I looked at that and I went,
That's the
No,
saddest
fuck that.
somebody did-
I
yeah.
went,
They spent
I cannot
some
afford.
time.
I cannot afford to spend any more time in this
Yep.
world where that little baby step is a victory. I'm like, nah, we got to move on.
But the
We
fact
have
that the
to move
jury
on.
spent some time.
That they considered that a
considering it.
victory. That they were like, Atticus Finch was like, well, they
But that's
spent a
all
couple hours.
Atticus has.
Exactly.
But that's why that's
exactly.
But
that's
that's a
not
different.
all that we have.
Yes, and
and I keep looking at this book and I'm like, this is such a beautifully written book. It really is. It has so much great moments in it. But just in terms of the fact that it's being used in high school to this day, that people will read it and go, this is still relevant. I go, you know what? Throw this book away. There are more pressing, relevant books to read. There are things that are even more incendiary.
I
that
think
we
you
can
should
read
give-
today.
I think
Give
you can
Silva for the credit because they definitely wrote that in the comments, bringing up the Hitler comparison.
Yeah, and
It's so true though.
But I think that you can have both, right? I think having a knowledge of the history of where
Yeah.
you started, but I think what we need from this is that there needs to be a modern version of this that
Sure.
says no, because at that time, baby steps based on sort of the
Were huge.
system.
I get it.
The system that
Totally.
it was in
Totally.
makes sense in the context, but that's not enough now.
Yeah.
We're so far past that, and it's the kind of thing where things are happening every day that are like, no, this is you do have to say, we did the baby steps. It's
Yep.
fucking over.
Yeah.
The end.
Instilled
The end.
prejudice.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not complicated. It's not complicated.
When
Yes.
young
It's people. The
Yeah.
end. Like
Boy.
it's just so. It makes me. I'm sorry. It just makes me so mad because it seems so simple,
Yeah.
and that's why I feel naive because I feel like I grew up was very fortunate to grow up. Just that was sort of. That's just how you treat people. Other people that you. It's the golden rule. You're
That's
taught
it.
it in school.
That's
Everyone
it.
deserves equality, and so when there's a conversation that breaks that in any way, it's like nope. It's simple. 5-year-olds are taught it. The
Yeah,
end.
yeah.
That's the end. That's it. So somebody out there needs to write a book that just says like, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
The end. Because
Well, I think
it's so
Morty
makes me so
in the
mad.
book is the fuck you in
Yeah.
this, and I
Yes.
love that she's just lost all of her patience with it.
That was a great
and
scene
just puts a
at that-
mirror
at
up,
that,
which
like,
I
little party,
loved.
yeah. Yep.
When they're just like, oh, I can't believe it. Oh, that Tom Robinson, and let's talk about all these things, and I'm doing my maid such a favor.
Ugh.
And what I notice is that she goes, I pay her $1.15 or $1.05 a week.
A week.
And then when the kids go to the fair, or the
30 cents. Yeah.
so their money combined, 60 cents,
Mm-hmm.
is more than half of her week's wage.
Mm-hmm.
And that sunk in with me. And it's like, I'm doing her such a favor. And Morty's just like, you know what? Does the food stick when it goes down? And it was like, boom. And there was this terse moment where a conversation didn't need to happen, but enough was said.
Yeah.
And the fact that she won over Atticus's sister, I thought that was a beautiful moment as well, where it's like, you have a choice.
Yeah.
You can see people for people, or you can be, I'm above them and they should be so grateful. And there's actually another part in this book which really kind of got to me as well. I think it's in this particular scene where they bring religion into being better than other people as well. Oh, my maid was moping about, and when they get so sad, their faces
Yeah.
drop like this. And I was saying to them, why are you moping? Why are you being so sad? You need to find Jesus.
Yeah.
This is an unchristian thing to behave like this. And
Totally.
it's like, how dare you use religion to not even see the fundamentals of what your religion stands for, and
Yeah.
not even realize that you are breaking everything that you think you are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That's a good point. Drop that book, Maud, because that's a fantastic point. Just drop it like a mic, because that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, so there's so many incredible parallels. I just got to give a shout out to T-Boys. He showed up late. What's up, T-Boys?
Hey, buddy.
Good to
Hey,
see you here.
T-Boys.
Yeah, there's a great conversation happening in the chat, and I think that there's so much good in this book, but I think that for me, the scene where the kids were learning about Adolf Hitler, I had a moment where I was like, oh man, what if I had kids? What if they came home one day, they're 6, 7, 8 years old, and they learn about Adolf Hitler? Like they just hear the name or they whatever, watch a movie with him in it or
Oh,
something.
that'll be younger than that because it's certain things are so in our culture that it permeates
that it's
really
like,
young.
How would I answer that question? And then I feel like that's the loss of innocence. This having to tell somebody this was a person who persecuted an entire people and murdered millions because of bullshit reasons. And then again, that kid is going to have to go through thoughts that Jem and Scout went through, where it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like this really frustrating, sad thing.
Yeah.
And I couldn't remember the first time I learned about Adolf Hitler
Yeah.
in World War II and the Holocaust.
I can't remember either.
I honestly can't remember, but I know that I learned about it more in 6th grade by a teacher, Miss Elam, who went through that area of the curriculum when it was optional. And she let us know it was optional. And she's like, but I still think we're going to go over this for a couple of weeks, guys, because I think it's very important.
Great.
And I remember then thinking that it was a big deal. And each year that I look back on that, I was like, that was massive. That it was a part of a curriculum that was optional
Yeah.
in
Oh,
6th
wow.
grade to 12-year-olds.
Bad things
and
don't
she decided
happen.
to, and she decided to do it.
I mean, look at like Columbus Day, or there's a lot of history that we
Absolutely.
don't get the real story for, and I think that's part of it, is that this is about the loss of innocence and that it is sort of necessary. I don't think you should ever lose that sort of incredulous reaction to these things. I
Yeah.
think if we can hold on to that and be like, no, it doesn't make sense. It's not normal. It doesn't make sense. It's not right. You have to hold on to that your whole life, I think, or else what else is there? You just get sort of pulled down. But this is important because it's good to be aware. It's good so that you can have these conversations. You can be a well-rounded adult
Agreed.
who is aware, who doesn't get to freshman year of college and is like, wait, what?
Totally.
So
Totally,
I think
yeah.
it's part of an education, but we need
agree.
more modern, and I'm sure they're out there, but these books need to be
I'm just
championed.
hoping that Ta-Nehisi Coates is taught in high school. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like reading his book Between the World and Me impacted me so much, and I'm just hoping that 16-year-olds are reading that right
Can
now
we
as a way to
do that on book club?
Oh,
Yeah.
that would be amazing. If we could read Between the World and Me, that would be we would have to sandwich it between 2 months that are real fun because it's a real downer. It's such a bummer. It's
Right,
so,
okay.
but it's
Yeah, we've
but
got
it's
a couple of
fantastic. Let's
months
get through a couple of months of
before
fun
that
stuff.
We could do
happens.
another month that's sort of
Real deep and reflective.
that's
Yes.
maybe a book that changed your life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we could
that
get
would be
into.
great.
That'd be a
What book
good
shaped you?
theme.
That
I
would be
love
great.
that.
There's
Mine
so
is
many-
still all escapist books. Not.
And you know what?
reflective.
And reading something like To Kill a Mockingbird, I feel more vindicated in loving my escapism because I think about the things that I learned from those stories, and I think about the type of person that I was shaped into. And you said it. You said it a second ago, Rachel. And by the way, I'm very drunk and I'm having a great time. You said it yourself a second ago. You teach this to 5-year-olds. It's simple. That's it.
Yeah.
And when you said that, I thought about the stuff that I learned as a 5-year-old from movies, from comic books. I legitimately believe I'm a good person because of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. I legitimately believe, that's not to knock on my parents, they did a great job raising me, but cartoons and Steven Spielberg and comic books taught me to be a good person, taught me the difference between right and wrong.
Yeah.
And that I see adults acting wrongly baffles me and it frustrates me, and it is so frustrating. And it's one of the reasons that when I got older I decided not to go into politics
Yeah,
but
that's
rather to
right.
go into storytelling, because I'm like, this is the way you shape the
Yeah.
world. This is the way you actually have any sort of effect and change on the world. And yet I'm still frustrated by To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm still like, nope, you didn't do enough. You didn't do enough because of
Yeah.
how shitty everybody is still. But I think that if To Kill a Mockingbird is taught in high school or college, I would just hope that there is something else to balance that. But I think that there is so much good in it. And I
Yeah.
think that it leads to so many great discussions and conversations.
Yeah.
I think you learn too. I mean, look at the conversations, and if you guys are just joining us, we've had many months now of conversations about books like Ready Player One and A
Yeah.
Wrinkle in Time and Haunting of Hill House that we had political discussions, we had religious discussions, we had sort of psychological, personal discussions from the get-go.
Yeah.
And I think that it's great to read books like this, but what I love about this and sort of we were like, okay, fantasy, but you can, even when we're reading escapism, we're still having those conversations.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
still in them because they're about people. Even if they're about elves, they're about people.
Why the elves being ostracized? Just because they're different.
Well,
Because
that's-
they don't fit in.
That's what great.
There was a great
Literature-
thread on Twitter that I saw today where a writer went through and said, a historian rather, explained the importance of like representation in fantasy stories. And they broke down how like certain people will sort of rewrite history to favor white people or to favor
but they're
this
still delivering a
Eurocentric.
message. And like you were saying, you were so
Yeah.
influenced in your childhood by these strong messages through it that you need to deliver it and cater it to all sorts of people. But the end message is the same. Be a
Yes.
decent human.
Yes.
We are all equal. Folks are folks.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the,
true.
That's the end of
Folks
it.
are
Let's all go
folks.
back to being 5 years old and understanding and seeing the truth.
Maud, I
and
try
not
every
having-
day.
Yeah.
To revert to 5 years old, I try every single day.
Yeah.
Because essentially it's saying the more you live in this world,
Yeah.
the more you see the truth. And the truth is ugly. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. There is one part in here, which isn't even in the notes. I want to touch on it super, super quickly. It was Mr. Dolphus's reputation. Mr. Dolphus is the man who decided to voluntarily take on a black wife and have mixed race children. And the way that he dealt with that and coped with that is so fucked in so many ways. He said it was easier to get the city to hate him for being a drunk than to accept him for loving a black woman.
That's essentially
So
what
he
he said.
walked
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
with a brown paper bag and made people believe that he was getting drunk all the time. And they were like, oh, he's just a drunkard. That's just the way he is. And that was easier to stomach than to try and accept a man for bucking the system and being like, I chose this woman because I love this woman. I have a family with this woman. And I thought that was a very interesting thing. And he goes, he offered the drink to Dill, who took it, and Scout was scared. And it was like, oh, it's just Coca-Cola. And he goes, you little folks won't tell me now, will you? It will ruin my reputation if you did. It would ruin my reputation if you told them that I was a decent person that wasn't a drunk. Let that sink in.
Yeah,
for a
that was really
second.
frustrating. Yeah, it was. Because on the one hand, you understand why a character like that would say that to exist in this society, in this small town, in this part of the country, in this year, he would have to go through these steps just to like survive, just to still be able to live in this town. And yet, as a person who's reading this in 2017, it is so frustrating because you're like, dude, bro, why are you pretending to be a drunk? Just like admit that you love a woman and have a family. Just fight for your family, for their right to exist. Fight for
But
your
then people are
children.
getting
Fight for
murdered
your.
in this book.
But then people
Yeah.
are getting murdered in this book.
Yeah.
And people are getting murdered in this year, in this
Yes.
part of the country.
Yes.
All
Absolutely.
the time.
And-
It's crazy.
Well, it's something that you don't think about. I can only really speak from my perspective, but you have people saying like, I would never do that. I would never behave that way because I
But
have
we're
a background.
not existing in 1935.
I
don't-
know, but
yeah.
it's still relevant. You can still go outside and be a person of color and not be able to behave a certain way, especially around the police for a certain
Yes,
reason.
yes.
I had I have my experience of just I live in an area that has a lot of people who probably should be in a mental health facility who are sleeping on the street, and going to the store without completely covering myself means I get followed home sometimes. And and I live in a fine neighborhood, and I'll ask my boyfriend like, hey, is this like whatever? And he's like, no, it's fine. And then I'm like, 5 different people like followed me home. And it's just a perspective thing. That's my perspective, which is not as bad as many others, but just knowing that, why in this time, why would you do that? It's horrible. But then people are getting killed.
Yeah.
And why are they getting killed? It's a hate crime.
Yes, it's a hate
and
crime.
hate crime still exists. And a hate crime is, it doesn't even matter what you say, what kind of person you are, what you've done to piss
You could
someone
do
off.
everything right. Tom
Yeah.
Robinson was like,
But
we
you
talked
look
about it the last time. He was life.
Yeah.
And so it's so hard because we don't understand what they were going through. We don't, but you kind of just have to. I think the power of this is not. You can't just read this But to take away that perspective and then say, okay, what's the next perspective? What's the next thing? What's the new modern version of this?
Can I ask
Apply
about
it.
something? Speaking of, you're rereading this, and I forget what age you were when you
I was
read
in
it.
high school. I definitely skimmed it in high
Okay,
school.
great. So like,
Definitely skimmed it.
So
I
like
actually blocked
5
out
to,
all of high school for a
Yeah.
moment.
5 to 10 years ago, you read the book. You know, this is around the time. Okay, great.
Yeah, like 2
So
years
you're
ago.
rereading it.
Yeah.
In the
10
section
plus.
that describes Tom Robinson being shot
Yep.
because he was trying to escape the prison. I can't remember a couple of months ago exactly how the movie handled that, but I do remember the scene where Atticus Finch went to Tom Robinson's wife and told her, and she broke down, and
Yes.
it was really sad. It was a really powerful scene. But did any of you guys think, oh, he definitely did not try to run? They just shot him in prison, and then
No,
said, or did you think that
I
he did
thought
try to
he
run?
had. Well, there was. Atticus is going, we'll appeal it, things are looking good.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, this will never get better. This is my life. And he's probably getting tormented in prison. And prison's hell for him as
That's
well.
true. But
So
was there
every-
any part of that made you think the way that Tom Robinson had
Yes.
acted up to this point?
That why would he?
that
Why would he?
He
act?
was so
Yeah.
a guy who followed the rules and kind
Yeah.
of knew his place, for better or
Yes,
worse.
that's a tactic that's
did-
used to this day.
Yes. Did you think, having read it 10 years ago, 5 to 10 years ago,
No,
Rachel,
then I definitely didn't. I'm sure.
you definitely thought he definitely tried to
I'm
escape
sure I read. I'm sure I don't really remember, but I'm sure I read it
as it was.
at face value. I mean,
Yeah,
I
at
don't
face
think
value.
I still did
I
as
don't
well.
think
I
had-
read that as absolute
Yeah.
helplessness, that there was no out. That
The
he
way that
saw this
Atticus
as, I've
broke
got to
it
look
down-
after my own because
but
no
that's-
one's going to have my back.
Well, I think
know,
because
yeah.
I think I would run, but
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about the same things. I don't have to question
Mm-hmm.
every decision and thing that I say the same way that he does. It's just a completely different experience, and it's a privilege that I have. You
Yeah.
know?
Lady Amphy in the chat is talking about Ann Doe. He's a comedian. He's an ethnic comedian in Australia, and he's built his entire repertoire in a way of being the foreign Aussie. He sounds Australian.
Yep.
He's been born and raised pretty much in
but
Australia.
he's the foreign Aussie.
Exactly.
Do you know where that
And
happens a lot also? Japan. There will be comedians who are gaijin, or like outsiders or white people or Westerners who make a career in Japan essentially kind of poking fun at themselves.
Yeah.
And like playing that up as being the foreigner. But continue. I don't know about Ando.
No, he's absolutely amazing, but obviously, I think it's a lot like Trevor Noah's autobiography as well.
Okay,
where
cool.
it's like, hey, I'm different and I'm trying to be with everyone else.
Yeah.
And you know what? Everyone thinks it's so easy. You just integrate, everything's fine.
I still got to point out the weird things about this country. Sure.
Yeah.
Or even looking at Key and Peele, who I think did really great commentary on what it means to be Black in America, what it means to be mixed in America, and there are all these different things
In
that
ways
come
that
from
that would trick you.
Yes.
Their zombie sketch
The
was
teach-
so
the-
funny.
It
The
teaches you,
yeah.
and I think like for me in high school, even as sort of I grew up in a very liberal environment. I think you listen to to other people, and the more that you listen, and the more that you
Yeah.
like Ava amplify other voices and hear
Yes,
those,
yes.
you learn different things. So when I read this 10, 15 years ago, no, I don't think that I picked up on a lot of the things that and experiences that I would now because I've been trying to
Exactly.
educate myself
Yeah.
and listen.
I will say I was exactly with Maud up until one line in the book. I was totally thinking like, yeah, the way that Atticus Finch is breaking down how Tom Robinson just felt like, you know what, the white man's word isn't going to do any good anymore, that he needs to escape because he is going to die.
Yeah.
And that even though Atticus is telling him, here's what we're going to do and we're going to try to,
It was on his
help.
terms and not on the system's terms. Yeah.
Until I was totally like, yep, he did make a run for it. Until the line where somebody said, yeah, they all believe that if Tom Robinson had 2 good arms, he would have made it. And I went, oh my God, Tom Robinson has a not good right arm. He's left-handed. There's no way this character would have made a run for it and tried to run with that arm over the fence. I was like, they framed him. And maybe that's my cynicism, but maybe it's my understanding of the world we live in today. And that every
is what
month,
Scout
every week,
had
every
to
day,
learn.
something else comes to light, something more frustrating, where I'm like, no, man. Even just a few days ago, from last time we had this show to now, not even, I think even after Comic-Con, a video was released of a cop's camera, like chest camera, literally planting evidence
Yes.
on a scene.
Yes.
And it's been making the rounds on social media, and we're like, what year is this? Are you kidding me? So when I saw that, I went, no, Tom was assassinated in jail, and the cops of that prison went, he tried to make a run
When
for
a
it.
regular person does it, it's a hate crime. When a cop does it, it's whoops. I
Yep,
was
it's-
thinking too quickly. Anyway, we are done with To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh
We
boy!
can continue this
Oh,
if you would like to.
oh man!
We all have Twitter accounts, so
Woo!
we can constantly talk about it. Hector is done with a fist pump and a few kicks in there. We do have a winner in our poll. If you have voted, thank you so much. Next month's book, my turn to fist pump, is going to be Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb.
I'm so
This is
excited.
happening.
Your book?
This is my book,
Wow.
guys. Fun fact, I actually have the audible version of this one, and I'm up to chapter 3.
Who read
Don't
it?
listen to the audible version. The guy when he talks is like got 9 accents at once,
Okay.
and it's really off-putting, and he's not a storyteller. It's
Oh, I'm so excited.
Maybe you've listened to it and you get used to it, but I'm 3 chapters in and I'm not a fan. Anyway, guys, your homework this week, get a copy of Robin Hobb's Assassin Apprentice. The end of chapter 6. So finish when you hit chapter 7 is
Okay.
where we'll be reading. I'm 3 in, guys. It's a blast so far.
so
There are
excited.
dogs. It's a lot of fun. There's pups in there as
Great.
well.
Pups?
Read it,
Love
don't
pups.
listen to it, and don't forget, we're on Goodreads, so just search Alpha Book Club. Come discuss it with us. We love talking books. If you are interested in joining us via Skype, hey, there's always a spot just for you. Let us chat. It's an easy conversation. You're so good in the chat as well. You can do it with your mouths. To us, we're a lot of fun. We love to have you on. Just use the hashtag on Twitter, Alpha Book Club, or use @Join Team Alpha. We'll get it happening super, super quickly. Be very vocal about that. And make sure you send us your book recommendations because we love those as well. @Nerdist, @Geek and Sundry, @Join Team Alpha. Use that hashtag Alpha Book Club. We are always looking for more high fantasy. I could do a murder
Sci-fi.
mystery. Haven't done one of those in a while, if not ever.
Ooh,
Don't even do it.
Halloween.
Don't go
Ooh,
there.
we gotta do. Dude, let's read it over
Sounds
2
so
months.
good.
Or
Okay,
whatever.
so It and
Nope.
House of Leaves are both 1,000 pages, but we should do them anyway.
Nope. All right, guys, that's all we've got time for. Bye-bye. $2.99 on Kindle right now. $2.99 on Kindle.
I'll be fine. I'll sober up in 2 hours. Bye, guys.
Bye.